Hello everybody, in today's video we'll be talking about how to secure your Wi-Fi as well as some security risk with IoT devices. So I have a resource from CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency with the US government. Definitely a very good resource to have, and it talks about securing wireless networks. Now, I believe that one thing will obviously be mentioned here is that it is a very big risk to connect to something like a public network without any countermeasures involved. Now, if you don't want to go out of your way and use a VPN, a virtual private network, which basically spoofs where your location is, and it can also encrypt the data that you're sending, definitely be cautious of going to any websites like your banking information, entering any very critical information into any websites on a public network. People can be sniffing and reading that traffic and that data that is going across on a public network, and they can read it very easily. Say you're at Starbucks or any coffee shop and you're doing something like that, someone sitting in that room could be looking at the network traffic and testing whether or not you are at risk and vulnerable and doing something that you shouldn't be. And so let's look at whether it's home or business, the risks to an unsecure wireless network are the same. Piggybacking, if you fail to secure anyone with a wireless enabled computer in range in your experience. Typical indoor broadcasts, if your neighborhood could open your internet connection, these users may be able to conduct illegal activities. So definitely always keep a password on your Wi-Fi. You may not even have any neighbors in your near vicinity, 150 feet, or even as far as 1,000 feet, but just do it just to be safe. Or driving, especially kind of piggybacking the broadcast range of wireless access. Can we make internet connections available outside your home, even as far away as your street? Savvy computer users know this, and some have made a hobby out of driving through cities and neighborhoods with a wireless equipped computer, sometimes with a powerful antenna, searching for unsecure wireless networks. Evil twin attacking adversary gathers information about a public network access point, sets up their own system to impersonate it. The adversary uses a broadcast signal stronger than the one generated by the legitimate access point, then unsuspecting users connect using the stronger signal. So if someone were to have a stronger signal than the coffee shop and were to use that they would use that as a method for people to try to connect to it unknowingly, thinking that it is the coffee shop that they're at. They can name it something very similar, who knows what, and they can then pick up all the traffic that's coming from that user on their network. Wireless sniffing. Many public access points are not secured and the traffic they carry is not encrypted. This can put communications or transactions at risk because your connection is being transmitted in the clear, or plain text is sometimes how you'll see it. Malicious actors could use sniffing tools to obtain sensitive information such as password or credit card and numbers. And that's what I was talking about earlier, is that on a public network, everything is out in the open, and they can use sniffing tools to read that information and see where it's going to, what website, and what information you're putting in. Unsecure public wireless network combined with unsecured file sharing could allow a malicious user to access any directories and files you have unintentionally made available for sharing. Ensure that when you connect your devices to public networks, you deny sharing files and folders. Only allow sharing on recognized home networks and only while it is necessary to share items. When not needed, ensure that file sharing is disabled. This will help prevent an unknown attacker from accessing your device's files. Shoulder surfing and public access. In public areas, malicious actors can simply glance over your shoulder as you type. So by simply watching you, they can steal sensitive or personal information. Obviously, this is never good. I wouldn't even go as far as they'd look over your shoulder. They might be able to use some sort of camera lens to zoom in and see that information. So, and this doesn't apply to just a park bench. It might be in your office, anything like that. what are some ways to minimize that risk? Change default passwords. Definitely whenever you are setting up your home network, it'll come with a default password. You'll definitely want to change that default password because those are very typical passwords for that device, and if someone can figure out what device you're using or just brute force all the passwords for very popular brands like Netgear is a popular router choice. If they brute force the default password for a Netgear router and you still have it set to that default, you are vulnerable in that sense. Restrict access. Only allow authorized users to access your network. Each piece of hardware connected to a network has a media access control address. You can restrict access to your network by filtering these MAC addresses. Consult your user documentation. And these are definitely things that you'll want to set up whenever you're setting up your router. And just to be curious and always delve into those security settings. Encrypt the data on your network. Encrypting your wireless data prevents anyone who might be able to access your network from viewing it. There are several encryption protocols provided to provide this protection. Wi-Fi protected access WPA, PA2, and WPA3 encrypt information being transmitted between WPA3 is currently the strongest encryption still available. The other two are still available, however it is vital to use equipment especially uses WPA3 as using other protocols to leave your network open to exploitation. Definitely don't use the WPA. I believe a lot of places still use WPA2, but WPA is by far the most vulnerable out of them all. Protect your SSID to prevent outsiders from easily accessing your network. Avoid publicizing your SSID. All Wi-Fi routers allow users to protect their device's SSID, which makes it more difficult for attackers to find the network. At the very least, change your SSID to something unique. Leaving it as the manufacturer's default could allow a potential attacker to find the type of router and possibly exploit any known vulnerabilities. That is not something that I knew, was to protect your service set identifier. And it gets into that is if they know what kind of router you have, they can look up and easily find potential vulnerabilities that specific router might have. Now, if it hasn't been updated or if it's just an outdated router in general, then that is definitely a risk. Install a firewall. Consider installing a firewall directly on your wireless devices, a host-based firewall, as well as your home network. Attackers who can directly tap into your wireless network may be able to circumvent your network firewall. A host-based firewall will add a layer of protection. Maintain antivirus software. We talked about that earlier. Use file sharing with caution. Keep your access point software. And I would definitely say one thing as well is if anything is asking you to open up a port on your network, be very suspicious of that because opening up ports, it generally is for any sort of maybe forms of transferring data. Port 8080 is a very common port and definitely need to be very concerned if anything does ask you to do that. And now let us look at IoT devices. We'll do CISA again. Let's see. Security. Alright, so again, I always like to use CISA, but there are plenty of other resources out there. Why should we care? Cars, appliances, wearables, lighting, healthcare, and home security all contain sensing devices that can talk to other machines and trigger additional actions. And so, what I should mention first is what IoT devices are, the Internet of Things. And they're generally, like it had said, anything that can be connected to the internet, has sensors, and can communicate with other devices. There are many other criteria and defining factors, but those are kind of the main points. And so they become commonplace now with smart watches, smartphones, smart appliances like your fridge, your oven, even smart thermostats, So they have become very commonplace, but they are also very vulnerable because especially whenever they're first created, they came with very little, if not no, security settings. I'm sure many of you have seen whenever you're connecting to your car Bluetooth, it'll want you to type in a password or something that the car gives you. And even your phone tells you, typically this number, the password is 0000 or 123456789, whatever. Even your phone is able to know that passwords are typically these very guessable default passwords, and they typically are 0000, 123, blah blah blah. So they're very easy to guess. What are the risks? Many security and resilience risks are not new. The scale of interconnectedness created by the Internet of Things increases the consequences of known risks and create new ones. Attackers take advantage of the scale, allowing them to access. There are also, I don't know if it said it here, but there have also been cases where botnets, which are a collection of devices that have been turned malicious. They are devices that will do a sole purpose of attacking a network, and generally carried out through DDoS attacks, which are what you'll see in movies where they flood a website or something with all these requests and all this information, and the website can't handle it and it shuts down. Now, imagine your phone, your watch, your thermostat all sending this data to a website. Anything that can connect to the internet is just flooding it with information. That would definitely shut down any website that is not prepared for it. So how do I improve the security of internet-enabled devices? Evaluate your security settings. Definitely, most devices offer a variety of features that you can tailor to meet your needs and requirements. Enabling certain features to increase convenience of functionality may leave you more vulnerable to being attacked. Definitely weighing that vulnerability or that convenience over security. That is always a constant battle. Ensure you have up-to-date software. Absolutely. Anything like watches like that, you'll want to keep it up to date so that no vulnerabilities are persistent on your device. And if a hacker figures out what kind of watch you have, they might be able to see that it hasn't been updated, or they might just try it anyways, and if it hasn't been updated, then you are in trouble. Connect carefully. Once your device is connected to the internet, it's also connected to millions of other computers, which could allow attackers access to your device. Use strong passwords is always a given. Just a little bit of information for you on IoT devices, and a good talking point, especially considering how common they are. Alright, and I will see you in the next video.